If you're starting a business or you want to be a creator, bar none, education is probably the easiest and best way to get there. It's like a cheat code.
Welcome to the 9 to 5 Quitters Club, the podcast uncovering the creator entrepreneurs at the forefront of a work revolution. Today we're speaking with Dara Denney. Dara has always been compelled to have a positive impact on the world. Her journey spans from NGOs in Africa to working in advertising in New York to eventually starting her own hyper-niche YouTube channel where she teaches creative strategy and development for paid marketing. Dara is leading a wave of B2B creators who have unlocked a new world of success making targeted content that sells educational resources to businesses. In this episode, we unpack how Dara leveraged her experience to build a six-figure business with only 80K subscribers on YouTube.
There is actually a systematic approach to creating wealth for yourself and a business for yourself if you are leaning into teaching something that people actually want to learn.
The impact she's having far beyond the life-changing money she's made.
Agencies and brands that do millions and millions per month. My course is affecting how they're approaching their creative strategy.
And make sure to stick around till the end for Dara's critical advice on how to break into being a B2B creator yourself.
You need to charge businesses the amount that you think will incentivize them to take action.
This episode is a masterclass in how you can be leveraging your lived experience to solve problems for people with budgets and make a good living even with a small audience. Let's dive in, and I hope you enjoy this conversation with Dara Denney.
When I first graduated university, I actually wanted to work with nonprofits and NGOs and started my career in West Africa, actually, where I was managing educational programs in Ghana and Togo and Burkina Faso. I also got a fellowship in India where I was working with Adobe and doing, teaching video editing and videography in India. And then eventually ended up in Egypt where I was there for 2 years. And I was a research analysis and I was doing program evaluations for United Nations, USAID. And I just kind of felt like I wasn't having a really big impact, the type of impact that I wanted to have. I loved the travel and I loved getting to meet people from all different cultures and backgrounds. But I felt like a lot of my day-to-day work was really performative and it wasn't helping people. And I decided, okay, I want to be a journalist. I want to tell stories that matter. So I actually went into the biggest English-speaking newspaper in Cairo at the time. And I was like, let me write for your newspaper. And the CEO took one look at me and she's like, actually, you're going to work for a social media agency. So it was there that I started working with fine dining restaurants doing their organic social strategy. So I wasn't doing paid at this time. I was only doing content creation on the organic side. And I did that for restaurants. I did that for a few mall chains out in the Middle East. And after doing that for about a year, I was like, you know what? I think I could kill it in New York. And I decided to then go back to New York and see what I could do in this career of marketing, essentially.
What was the light bulb moment or the learning moment where you were like, this version of this career being a creator could replace the 9 to 5 or break out of that 9 to 5 mentality? Because I know you're working still agency work.
The reason why I do that is because I feel like with my industry, you need to have a hand in the strategy still, and you need to understand how these platforms work. It changes so much. It changes like every 6 months. And I feel like for me to produce the most authentic content and like to be the best resource I can to the people who follow me, I still need to personally do the work. I've tried taking stretches of time where I didn't do it and I didn't have as many content ideas. I'd say really the light bulb moment for where I realized I could have a wildly different career than I ever thought that I could was honestly when I started making a lot more as a creator than I did in my 9 to 5. And a lot of that was coming from YouTube partnerships, from affiliate deals. And I had so many people asking me to make a course, and I knew realistically what I could charge for a course because I would be selling it B2B. So I could sell it a little bit higher than I think like a few typical like social media courses that I've seen out there. And I really knew I could position it to be a business resource. And I knew that it would do well. I just had this like gut instinct that it would do really well. And when I decided to quit my job, I was like, oh, I'm going to combine this with leaving my 9 to 5. So the course launched, I think, 3 weeks after I quit my 9 to 5.
Because you were making money before, but that was like, oh, big difference.
Yeah. The course was going to be the thing that told me whether or not I was going to get another 9 to 5 job. After, well, it was like the course, like also it took a lot of time and effort. And like I did the entire thing myself, which I won't do again when I do another course. But I was just like, if it does really well and I can really like position myself to be more of a resource for my subscribers and for the people that follow me, which is what I want to do, it's what I feel like a deep connection with, then as long as I can see that path forward, and the course that's what I'm going to do.
Of all those things you do now, course creator, CEO, the many hats a creator wears,
yes.
Where's that drive coming from? What is the identity underneath that drives you or you most attached to? What do you see yourself doing in your 80s that is part of this?
The way that I identify right now is I identify simply as a creative, because I think that's the one and only thing that can translate into my quote unquote professional career as an advertiser, as well as who I am for my own personal business, where I am making this YouTube content, where I'm making these courses. And then on the professional side, I'm essentially coming up with ideas for ads. So it's all around like this idea of content creation, even though the funnel and sometimes the platform or the message is a lot different. But I think at the core is I really understand how to communicate with people across the platforms that I think are most important right now culturally. So when I think of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, those are like the three that I'm like, okay, I really understand these. I understand how to get people to convert and buy from them. And I am also understanding now a lot more how to build community organically, which was really like the number one thing for me building up my YouTube channel originally.
It sounds like you really enjoy the problem solving element.
Every time I work with a brand and they want me to make an ad for them or they have a problem, I always approach it as we already know what the end goal is. How do we get there? And what are the most likely like processes or tactics or strategies we can use to develop a piece of creative that gets them their end goal. And I'd say that probably ties back to like my media buying background, which is heavily analytical. It's incredibly platform based. It's like spreadsheets and walls of data. And I still am really tied to a lot of that. And I will say that I think the data really does influence a lot of what I do, not only on the professional ad buying side, but also as a creator. When I see that there are certain things that get the attention of my viewers, AKA the algorithm, I pay attention to that and I try and lean into that when possible.
I've been excited to talk to you because I think your journey is fascinating, that you went towards philanthropy in these places to make an impact, didn't find an impact quite there. You say you came back to New York to do advertising, but then what's the link to when you started your channel?
Throughout my career, I always felt a need and a drive to share parts of my story and to make content. When I was, a preteen, I was on Zanga and like making the long vlog. It's a throwback, right? I did the Zanga, I did the live journal. When I was traveling a lot, I kept a blog. And even throughout a few of my first marketing jobs, I would make content about what I was learning on the marketing side. And it was interesting because I saw that employers would find my marketing blog and they would be like, oh, we want to hire you because of this. So I saw the impact that making content had on me professionally and personally. When I was deciding whether or not I wanted to start a YouTube channel, I just felt this drive to make content and to share. And it's interesting because when I was thinking about, okay, what type of content am I actually going to make? I was actually considering doing a YouTube channel that would document my journey to becoming an ultra marathon runner. Spoiler alert,
right,
I do not.
Didn't.
I was really captivated by a lot of those stories of people who were getting out and being active, even though it was very much a solo journey at the time. And I think that the pandemic kind of forced me to have that same solo journey. And when I decided, okay, I'm actually going to do my videos about media buying and about advertising, it honestly just came down to the fact that I was like, oh, I'm good at this in my 9 to 5. And I think I can talk a lot about it. And because I was early on in my career when I started it, there was a sense of I knew what content I wanted 6 months before or a year before.
For yourself.
Yeah. So when I started making content, I was making content for the person that I was like 6 months previously, 1 year previously. I think a lot of times, even when I talk to other media buyers or people that work in advertising and they want to make content, they feel like they have to be a director at a big ad agency and they have to be like this expert level person. But when I got started, I was a manager level. I was not a quote unquote expert at that time. I was really good at it. I was talented, but actually doing the YouTube channel, even in the first few weeks and months of doing it, I realized how rapidly my skills begin to develop and how much executive leadership I was developing because it trained me how to talk and how to communicate my process. And since I was client facing, I was able to persuade them a lot more and to use different tactics of communication to get them to relate, like to me more, trust me more, all the things. Simply being on camera and watching yourself do that and edit yourself, it is a humbling experience.
It so is.
Yeah. And it's, a lot of people say, oh, it's so cringe. And you have to go through the mountain of cringe and do it. But when I first started doing YouTube, I didn't tell anyone about it. I was doing it in my parents' basement.
Publishing, not telling your friends.
Oh, no, I didn't tell anyone about my channel until 6 months in. But by that time I was doing it, it had already seen a little bit of success in my super niche industry, which was, paid social.
We'll get right back to our conversation with Dara after this short break. This podcast is brought to you by Teachable and therefore has no sponsors. So we just wanted to take a moment to encourage you to go check out Dara on YouTube, where she's helping companies and individuals build creative for paid media that actually reaches the right people and turns them into valuable customers. Creators like Dara are the reason this podcast exists, so supporting them helps support our ability to bring you more of their stories and lessons. You can find more from Dara by searching at Dara Denney on YouTube, which is also linked in the show notes or description wherever you're watching or listening. Okay, now back to the episode. Education as a form of content, was that purely strategic? Or is there something about that process too of communicating a concept, reducing it down, talking about it that you enjoy, or is that kind of just part of what you have to do?
I think that initially I was chasing that impact overall. And I think that education and democratized education, aka YouTube, where anyone in the world can access it for free, was really appealing to me. There was absolutely an element of me raising or teaching myself and the person who I was 6 months, even a year previously, that I was really dedicated to. But I think now I am leaning a little bit more into what I'd call like edutainment as like definitely a term that like we see becoming more popular. I'm not going to go out there and try to be like the Mr. Beast of advertising.
Sure.
Like, I don't know that something like that could work. When you look at the different eras of advertising, it's a really great reflection of the culture. And something that I'm interested in leaning more into is, still providing education, but taking a step back from the specific platform that I've been teaching about recently, which is just Facebook ads. I want to talk a lot more about broader marketing strategies so that maybe people who don't have a career in advertising but are interested in it can be more conscious consumers or can understand when certain brands or certain advertisements, like certain tactics that are being used on them. But also it's good for advertisers to know so that they can also be more ethical advertisers or more effective advertisers So like education is a part of the long con. I also just think if you're starting a business and you're starting an info business or you want to be a creator, bar none, education is probably the easiest and best way to get there.
Why do you think that is?
The days of the YouTuber, vlogger, that kind of stuff, it's always going to be around and some people are always going to get lucky. But there is actually a systematic approach to creating wealth for yourself and a business for yourself if you are leaning into teaching something that people actually want to learn. And I think that's a lot more attainable for people.
It is. It's funny you say that, though, because I don't think in the bulk of our culture, people think of education as a way to make a bunch of money.
No, and I think actually it's the opposite. One of the hardest jobs that I had, I taught kindergarten for 1 year when I was living in Egypt. Legitimately the hardest job that I ever had. And even a lot of my friends who teach here now, it's criminally underpaid. But I think that's because it hasn't quite caught up to a lot of the ways that people are actually learning now and seeking out information, which is online, which is through their social media platforms, which is through YouTube. And I know something you and I talked about too, is I feel so strongly 2025 is going to be the year of the B2B creator. And I'm starting to see a lot more brands paying attention to part of your job description now is like making content. And I'm seeing the lines being blurred a lot between professionals and making content, and more professionals are making content. And I'm really excited about it because I think that especially for people who didn't succeed as much in academics, so therefore they maybe didn't get the exact job that they wanted, it is like the cheat code to being able to attain the type of wealth that candidly I didn't ever think was going to be possible for me, or would have taken me years and years and time, so much time to succeed.
That path of doing it for someone else kind of leaves you with nothing. Like, you are building intellectual property you may be able to hand down. Do you think about that ever, that you're building something beyond your lifetime?
Absolutely. And I think about it in the sense too of like, I know the next 5 years of my life is going to look really different. And it's a big reason why I don't want to take a 9-to-5 right now. Having my course and having this career as a creator, it enabled me to negotiate with, my part-time job right now. Like, hey, I'm not going to go full-time with you. Take it or leave it. Either way is fine with me, because I don't need to make decisions on what I do with my time because of finances. And the reason why that's so important for me to do that right now is because within the next 2 to 3 years, I am going to have kids and I am going to have a family. And I feel like right now I need to really set a good foundation for my business so that over the coming years, I can continue to build that and then eventually hand it off and maybe hire other people to come in and start making advertising content. Or I also just think it'd be so interesting for my kids to see an at-home business, I grew up with a very blue-collar family, and I saw them work really, really hard. It was something that was a really important value for my parents, was working hard, and you didn't really have a good day until you put in hard work. But because of that, I didn't see my parents a lot. A lot of times my mom would be gone for a few weeks or a few months because she was working in Georgia or in London. And I remember big pockets of my childhood where she wasn't there. So I'm really curious to see, wow, how is that going to be different since my business is essentially me, how it can mold and also grow beyond that. But the thing that I also like is me, the business, is not me, my life. There's a very clear line of, I talk about business stuff. I talk about advertising. I feel like that kind of shields me from a lot of the things that can be quite cruel on the internet.
It's what I love about the educational creator space. I feel like early internet, it redefined what a celebrity could be.
Yeah.
And now in this space, you're still growing an audience, but you're doing it usually with something you love. Mm-hmm. You can shelter yourself more because it's about your knowledge, not about what you're wearing necessarily or any of that, or your kids. And then to what we were saying about this being early in the economy, did you leave with any ideas about how this may shape the world?
I think it's going to be really normal for, as people progress in their careers, to have digital products or to potentially have a course. I think it's going to be way more normalized. And I'm saying this as a person that even maybe felt a little nervous about making a course, because I feel like there is a very loud minority of people who have said something like, oh, if you can't do, you teach. If you're a course creator, you're not really providing anything valuable. But making my course and the feedback I've gotten from it, it's actually legitimized my career a lot more, because I'm taking the processes and things that I know, putting them into a systematic format for people to learn from. I've actually talked to a few people who've bought in the course recently. Oh yeah, like I reorganized my entire creative department, agencies and brands that do millions and millions per month in revenue. And my course is affecting how they're approaching their creative strategy. And I'm like, wow, like that is incredible. I think that what we'll see is that people who dedicate themselves to a craft, part of that element of being that good is going to be also sharing and providing your own blueprints for success.
That phrase of those who can't do teach.
Yeah.
Do you have a little quip back for someone who says that now at this point?
I just think that perspective is going to change a lot. I'm pretty certain of it.
My parents see me get into this world and stuff. They oscillate between being very excited about, oh, wow, what cool opportunities should we get into it? And then also disgusted with, oh, everyone's going to have to make content now.
Yeah.
But do you think, I know that's a big statement, but that it's a good thing that the world of business is going this way? Or do you see possible downsides as well as that becomes maybe a requirement for success?
I do think it's going to put some people off. And I think some people are going to struggle with it if they feel like they have to do it. But I think that there's always going to be those more traditional modes for people to find success, for people to, excel academically, to take a little bit more methodical approach to their career. But especially for creatives, I think that methodical approach didn't work and doesn't have to work. And there's actually just more pathways to success now for that. And something that I've said in retrospect about my trajectory with the YouTube channel is I initially used the channel as a way to career hack. It wasn't my goal to make a course. It wasn't my goal to be this YouTube star. I actually just wanted to get a director position, go from a manager to a director. I wanted to do that way sooner because I was making about $70K per year at an ad agency, being a digital ads manager. Within 6 months of my YouTube channel, I got an offer for $145K, which was a life-changing salary bump for me at the time. And that was all because of the YouTube channel. And that was where I was like, okay, this happened because of the content I put out. And I wanted to keep pushing it to see how much further I could go. And I'm still doing that.
Yeah. Well, we've been more and more obsessed with this concept of quitting the 9-to-5 just as a convention, as a system, and how creators are doing that, even as they go take 9-to-5s again or that kind of stuff.
I flirted with taking another 9-to-5. This part-time job I have right now, the goal was for me to go full-time with them, but I realized super quickly I didn't want to do that. And it wouldn't be financially worth it for me to do that.
But it's fascinating you said that was like a strategy to achieving career growth.
Yeah.
Did you have other examples of that around you?
I didn't really see any examples of it at the time. What I did see, though, was there was a big gap in the market, especially on YouTube. So when I looked at the type of media buying and Facebook ads content that was being put out, it was all around drop shipping. I didn't really see anyone putting content out there from the perspective of, I am a career advertiser. I'm not trying to start an agency. I'm not trying to sell a drop shipping course. Here's my content. And within the first 30 days, so first month of my channel, I made $3,000 because a few people had found my YouTube channel and wanted me to do audits on their Facebook ad accounts. Because I was putting out that content,
wow,
I was getting these early indicators that like something was working, and slowly then started to hear from other people who wanted to hire me or who wanted to like work with me. And I was like, okay, there's definitely something here. And I'm not a real spiritual person. I just knew something was like, this was like a really good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any advice you have for people who maybe the goal isn't millions of followers, the conventional thought of having a business, but if they're going to start their own platform or choose a channel to start putting themselves out as an authority for just the purpose of bettering their job potential, how do you do that?
I'll tell you how I did it, which is something that I haven't heard other people do, and I know it works. My first 30 days on YouTube, I actually published one video every single day. This was before shorts. The strategy was really simple. Like, I was seeing what were the most commonly asked questions on YouTube about media buying. And every single day I would simply answer one of those questions. I was finding them just doing SEO research. I think I was using TubeBuddy, vidIQ, and then even just like looking at Google keyword searches. I just listed out the top 30 questions that I saw people answering over and over again. And I would make 2 to 5 minute videos from my iPhone, very bad quality. Some of those just started ranking for SEO on Google. And that's how some people found me. And even though I didn't have the greatest quality of video, like immediately when I started seeing traction, I like reinvested in getting like a small camera and learned like Adobe Premiere Pro and like all the things. But I think that what I realized even just in the first month was I was having a ripple effect with how I showed up in my job by filming myself. So the perks and benefits of making that content were really clear to me, even though I had 80 subscribers my first like month on YouTube. I got to 1,000 within the first 6 months. These platforms, like they snowball. Even right now, I look at my growth on it and I'm like, oh, it's not as good as most other creators that are like, you know, putting content out on a reoccurring basis and have committed to it. But it's also because of my industry, you know, and my niche. And it's kind of slow to grow. So I don't have videos with millions of views, but you don't need to. And you don't need tons and tons of followers to make it work either.
I grew up very working class too. I do quite well, but we're also, of course, all at Teachable just looking at the creators being like, we on the right side of this? But for someone who came from that, when you launched your course, you had quite a lot of financial influx all of the sudden.
Yeah, it was crazy.
How the heck has that affected your mindset?
I won't lie. I think the first time I saw that 6-figure number pop up in my bank account within a month, AKA felt like overnight to me. The launch was incredible. I was like, wow. I've heard of other people doing that, but I didn't think that would be possible for me. It really just kind of, I felt like really kind of nervous by it and intimidated by it because I don't know, maybe there are some like old money wounds from being like super working class that like I've had to deal with. But initially I was just like mind blown. I still am like a little mind blown. And I think that even part of that has hindered what could be even more success. I know that if I would advertise the course more, if I would push it out more, the people love it. I could get more from it. But it's done so well that I'm also just, I live a very like soft, easygoing life right now. When I first went from like 70K to 145K like salary, that blew my mind. And like the only other time I ever felt that was the course launch. And that was that times 3. It felt really incredible and mind blowing. And to be honest, the course, still brings in anywhere from 20 to 30K per month. And that's all passive.
Wow.
I don't really talk too much about the course. Maybe I'll mention it in a video here and there. I'm going to be relaunching it soon, putting some more tweaks on it, getting some more like interactive modules in there. But it's like the first taste of financial freedom that I've ever had. I always felt like in order for me to, make money and get what I want, I had to work hard. But like what I created is still working for me, even like a year later.
Do you think it'll be a challenge for you to get over not working hard and making a lot of money?
Yeah, you should never hire me. Really, that's why I can't work full time anymore. I'm just.
Well, you mentioned this earlier. I think a lot of your success, just specifically to like your audience size, to the price of your course, to how much you're making, is this B2B model.
I priced my course at $8.99 because I knew that brands and agencies would be using it as a training module for multiple people. There are some like one-off media buyers who wanted to buy it as a business expense for themselves, but a majority of the people who have bought it as a team expense. And I don't think that would have been possible for not going B2B. And it was also a part of my career strategy, right? I didn't want to create just like an intro to like, making ads on the internet. I wanted it to be very much, you are a career professional and here is a piece of content, a big piece of content, a course that is going to respect the position you have at your agency or brand, elevate what you know, and give you lots of systems and processes and tactics and strategies to increase that even more. So
why is it you think that B2B model is the future of it?
Because businesses are willing to pay.
That's
Businesses are willing to pay. I was just listening to a podcast about this morning, and they were talking about why it seems to be that businesses are the first place that like wants to innovate and try new tactics and strategies. And that's also because like they want to pay for it and they're incentivized to be on the cutting edge of technology and on platforms, because if they can be, first in line or have an edge on it, then that has a ripple effect with their revenue numbers.
We'll be right back after this quick break. I do think it's quite a mental flip to go from I'm getting hired by someone to I'm teaching businesses how to do their work. Other than just like chutzpah, what?
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for shifting that mindset or trying to wrap around how you can do that?
Yeah, I think something that I really had to coach myself on personally was that I deserved a seat at the table and that I had something worth sharing that would be valuable for businesses. I even had this yesterday with the company that I'm working with. I sat down with the CEO for an hour and a half and we were just talking about business and product strategy and advertising strategy. And I was like, wow, I kind of have to like remind myself how valuable my perspective is still, even though I've had a lot of this financial success. So I don't think that you reach financial success and that goes away right away. I really do think that a lot of times too, it's your individual perspective is really valuable. And I think as me, someone who has identified and like I'm a self-recovering like people pleaser, I find that I even especially like working with clients, I would try to make the clients happy. And now I have found that the real job that I have isn't to make people happy, but to make them money and to make their businesses money. And I've just had so many instances where I've worked with a brand or worked on an advertisement and it didn't work. And I realized because I was trying to make someone else happy, but if I really just did what I thought was best, that would have saved everyone a world of hurt. And I've had that mistake enough times to realize that like I have to have an internal gut check to be like, yeah, what's actually going to work? Forget making people happy. A business is more likely to take action if they paid $1,000 for it than if they paid $10 for it. I look at like the B2B world and I'm like, it's actually about charging the amount that is going to make your audience take action. Sometimes that's $100. In my case, I really felt strongly that it was around the $1,000 mark.
Can you repeat that? Because I think that's a nugget of genius.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to charge businesses the amount that you think will incentivize them to take action. Sometimes it's less about, is this course worth it? And more about the mental math of what's going to make your users actually take action.
Also coming from kind of a humble family, it was like a revelation to figure out how wealth works. You get a certain amount. You can kind of just live off of that, the interest, however you structure it. So I'm always surprised somewhat that there aren't more creators who just like dip out at some point.
Yeah.
Do you have a financial goal or endpoint in mind where you would just go pursue something else, or you see the content creation lasting long into your lifetime?
I love the advertising industry. Again, I think advertising is a reflection of where we are in culture and like where we are in society. And I love being able to view our culture through that lens. But I also love creating. I love being on camera. You don't start a YouTube channel being a wallflower. I love the attention. And because maybe it is like me playing into, I have like 6 houses in Capricorn. Like I want to be the best. Like I want to achieve all the goals. So it's it makes a lot of sense for it to be advertising and performance marketing where I have very strict money goals. And if I make brands money, that's when I make myself money. And if I can make content about that, that's all the more fulfilling for me.
With the whole disruption, I think, of the pandemic and what that did for the creator economy, do you think you would have found your way into this otherwise?
I will say that I had been toying around with starting a YouTube channel for 2 years before the pandemic, and it was something I was really interested in doing and really dedicated to doing. I just don't know if I would have sat down and did it. I'd say there are about 20 good reasons to start a YouTube channel, and there's about 100 other things that are going to distract you from actually just taking action and starting it. And the startup on YouTube is kind of brutal. And back then, there wasn't TikTok. So I feel like TikTok gave people the dopamine of like the fast numbers. Oh my God, my video got 100,000 views. None of my videos on YouTube have had 100,000 views. So that reach is really slow building. But YouTube is the ultimate trust platform. People know me and feel like they know me because they watch me on YouTube. Or just like seeing how people process and share information when it's not like 3-second hook and then like fast-paced video editing clips. Actually being able to like sit down with people and see some more of their flaws. They just kind of come to life a lot more. I've met several subscribers, especially at events or like whatever, and they're like, yeah, I feel like I know you. It's crazy. And I'm like, oh, is that good or bad? So it's mostly always good.
If you could stay in the industry but change one thing about it, is there like a specific element about it you think doesn't need to be there?
I think the thing I hate about my industry the most is incredibly dogmatic, and it's like dogmatic for no reason. So like lots of advertisers and agencies have a very methodical way of doing things. And they're like, there's only one way to media buy. There's only one way to scale a brand. There's only one way to success. And I really don't understand why it's so dogmatic, why we aren't like experimental. It's interesting though. If you would have asked me this question like maybe 2-3 years ago, I'd be like, not enough people share their stuff. Now everyone's sharing their stuff on Twitter. Everyone is sharing their methods, but now they've realized that in order to get more of the numbers, get more of the reach, and get more sponsorships, they have to be polarizing. So they'll say, this is the only way that you can succeed on Facebook ads. This is the only ad creative that whatever. My Twitter is just clogged with, this is the only way to do X, Y, and Z. So when I normally sit down to do these type of interviews on advertising or e-commerce podcasts, it's half the time like a long list of questions about, okay, what's your hot take on like X, Y, Z? And I'm like, I don't have one because every business is different. And none of this is plug and play, which is why you have to be a lot more nimble. You have to be more strategic. It's not just about plugging in certain tactics. So D2C and e-com, dogmatic, no good reason. And we know you're all getting sponsorships from, from those SaaS companies.
Yeah.
I love some of these SaaS companies, don't get me wrong, but look under the veil a little bit about like what's going on.
As someone who dabbles in these different realms of content, do you have any advice for just like making good content? I know it's such a like subjective thing, but if you're a creator, either you're starting out or you're not feeling like you're up to where you want to be, how do you critique yourself or measure yourself in just making great content?
There is only one KPI or metric that you should care about when you first start putting content out online, and it's the amount of times that you hit the publish button. If you really want to do this, or want a career hack, or you want to make more money, or you just want to see what is possible, it's not like how many people like it, how many people buy from it. It's not how many people view it. It's how many times you hit publish and learn from every time that you hit that publish button. So that's why when I first started, I was like, I'm going to commit to one video every single day. And if you can commit to a challenge like that, you're going to learn way more from everything that you put on the line when you hit publish than reading all the theory about how to make the perfect YouTube or Instagram video. Like, all those are out there for free. Sure, look at a few of them. But like, the real learning moment comes from just like hitting publish as many times as you can.
Before we wrap up, I have some rapid fire questions
Let's
for
do
you.
it.
Favorite place you've ever traveled?
I loved India. I lived there for a year. It's magical. The food is amazing. It's brightly colored. The people are really fun. It's no surprise too that like I'd say the second biggest demographic on my YouTube channel is like people from India, and like I get to talk to like people even from like the places that I visited there all the time, and I love that. It is starting to become like a huge superpower in the business realm, and like it's only going to increase, and like it's not something to be underestimated.
Favorite place to work in New York?
I co-work a lot at Neuhaus with Jack Appleby. Working with other creators is like bar none, the cheat code, and has helped me negotiate a lot bigger brand deals. It's helped me organize the way that I think about spending my time. And I think it is like the number one reason why I'm going to be able to reach like the next point in like my creator career.
Why New York City?
New York has always had that energy. I think New York City is the best place for creators because there's a lot of people doing it. You walk down the street, you see people filming a YouTube video, you see people putting themselves out there. I also think New York is just the place where, you know, people are going for it. They like have a goal in mind, and it's really fun to be around like other goal-oriented people who like just have a little bit of that extra.
Yeah. That extra dog.
Yeah, that extra dog in them. I wasn't going to say it, but yeah.
Last question before we part. How do you keep grounded in a space where you're so exposed to criticism?
Great question. Having a support system that's outside the advertising industry has been like the thing that keeps me touching grass. You know, I have a great partner who, you know, is barely present on social media and doesn't know anything about the world, but I know that he would be a great support for me, whether or not I did this. And that's like something that brings me a lot of comfort.
Anything else you wanted to say to creators, to people in the creator economy?
Yeah. I think the number one thing that I wish could sink into my bones and wish I like could sink into the other people that like think that they might want to try this, think that there might be something out there, listen to that. You don't have to tell anyone when you're starting to hit publish. You can create a new Instagram, a new YouTube. I didn't tell anyone about my YouTube channel for months and months. I didn't publish it on my Instagram for a year and a half because I didn't want that intermingling, and I didn't want the people who knew me to care about it. I was very anxious about that. And I think I've heard a lot of people are anxious about that. But even if you just start putting stuff out there and start seeing how that feels, like that's going to tell you whether or not like you're onto something. And you can really hack your way to success by sharing that knowledge. I didn't make a 6-figure salary into my 30s. And I knew a lot of people that were making a lot more money than me in their early 20s. And I feel like sometimes I'll hear my cousin who's like 23 talking about, oh, you know, I need to make this much. And I'm just like, where is this coming from? It's wild. I feel like a lot of people feel like they are far behind. And the number way to hack that is to start making content, start putting yourself out there. But you can do it in a way where, you know, you protect yourself a little bit from the people who know you. Just give it a try. It really is worth it.
Dara, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Dara is a prime example of how you can strategically leverage your existing life experience, be it in your work or otherwise, to reach customers who have an exceptional need and ability to pay for the value your experience can offer them. I hope you learned as much as I did today, found something you can apply to your life, and if nothing else, were inspired by Dara's story to take a hard look at your 9-to-5 work and make sure the way you work is working for you. If you want to join the thousands of other creative entrepreneurs who are building an income out of their impact, click the link in the description to join the club and learn how Teachable can help you do the same. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out our recommended next episode linked here. Thanks again for being here, and we'll catch you in the next one.